community. And the question is, what are you grateful for today? So who would like to go first?
I am grateful to be able to work from home and that I am healthy and well and my family is healthy and well and that I have been given this time to hunker down and take a pause because I've now switched from panic mode to just, okay, let's take this time to breathe and figure out who I am, what I like, all of the things that I don't really get to do when I'm running.
Totally. Good.
Okay, here I go. Well, I'm grateful because my family is doing well in Costa Rica, and in Costa Rica, they are really doing very well with this COVID situation. It's a good example for all the countries, and so that gives me peace. And I'm grateful that my husband and I are okay and healthy and trying to stay productive and trying to remain calm. And I feel like in a safe place, like in my home is a safe place to be. So I'm grateful for that.
Good. Thank you.
Just grateful for the ability to even ask myself what I'm grateful about at this point. And the privilege that we all have today to even consider it, to have the space and time to consider it. It's true gratitude.
Yeah. Lacey?
I am thankful that I have a fridge full of like really delicious food, and I've been spending a lot of time really like cooking and feel like using that as a creative outlet. And I also know that that's like, you know, for a lot of people, like food, especially where I'm at in Mexico, feels like you know, a very privileged place to be in, to not have to worry about that.
Okay. Thank you. I love how the answers to this question have become so seemingly simple, but I think it's also just a reflection of what's happening to us as a society, where we are coming back to the things that are essential and simple. And so I keep hearing an echo, but I'm gonna keep going. I don't know where it's coming from, but maybe, yeah, okay, it went away. All right. So yeah, like we keep coming back to these things that are really simple and really grounded in what's important, like what's really important, and just really get centered on that. So today we're gonna have just a really juicy conversation about what writing, the power of writing, and the power that writing does for us. And I'd like to kick it off, honestly, like from a place of curiosity, if everyone can share like a brief mini story of what got you into writing, like what made you realize that this is something that you loved and this is something that would actually felt healing for you. So Liz, go ahead and kick it off.
So I think everybody else used to write as a child, but when I was 10 or 11, I destroyed all of my work because it wasn't of quality, and I would never be have a prodigy at 4. So by 10, I was destroying notebooks, and thus continued a cycle of self-sabotage until about 5 years ago, where I decided to take it seriously. But and then thus another series of events. But it's always been there. I think for a lot of us, it's always been there. And no matter how much I've tried to deny it or stifle it, or say this isn't going to pay the bill. When I grew to that mindset mentality, right, of I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was to the United States when I was 7. So we always had that hustle mentality, right? Like, how do we pay the bills? How do I get the degree that's going to make my parents proud? But, you're always mindful of that as a child. And being an artist is not at the top of that list. So it just got stifled until I couldn't anymore. And it's been 5 or 6 years since I've been on that path. And I just, simultaneously, I work on other things, but it's just always going to be a part of my life.
Yeah. I think a lot of people relate to that story. Elizabeth, you want to share?
So I am it started with my grandpa because I come from a line of writers, so I was really I grew up being a writer, really. So my grandfather was a political journalist in Colombia, and he wrote several books. He was first published when he was 16, and so his children, my dad, was also a writer, and when I was little, he gave my sister and I notebooks, little journals, and he would sit by the end of the bed and just like at the end of every day, just sit with us in the room and just have us write like how the day went. So from the age of like 6, I was taught to express myself through my writing, and he would just ask what we wrote, and he would tell us to read it to him, or if we didn't feel comfortable, we didn't. But it was just, I basically grew up learning how to express myself through my writing. And I also have stories from that I wrote when I was like 9 and 10, but I have not torn them up. They're just in a little like memory box. But I think I wrote a story when I was 10 about like Santa. But it just goes way back with me. And just my brother's also a writer, so is my sister. It's just we all write letters to each other, and we make our own cards, and that's just how we've communicated with each other. And so for me, it's very therapeutic. Again, I resonate with Liz. I came to the US when I was 9 from Colombia. So to me, it was, okay, how do I get a degree that's going to sustain my family, and how am I going to make money for them? So writing, being a published book writer is not at the top of my list. I hope to one day be, but for me, it's just very therapeutic. Whether I make money with it or not, it's for me.
Yeah. Thank you. Lacey?
I think like, you know, as a kid, I just had like I just gravitated towards books and stories, especially like for me, like they were a form to kind of like escape things that were going on. But I also really saw like the power of writing through so many things in my own life. So I always say like for my personal self, like journaling, I say a lot of times, like, I don't really know what I think about something until I kind of like write it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's my way to really, okay, like to connect with like my voice and my thoughts and know like, what is it that I really think and what is it that's like other people's thoughts. So it's a good way to separate from that. And then, you know, writing is really a powerful tool for change. I remember like when I was in college, I was the president of this like alternative spring break group where we do like a volunteer project during spring break. And I was really passionate about it, but the administration at the school, like really like it was kind of this program they didn't really want to be involved in, and they wanted to kind of do away with it, and they were like defunding it, and I was trying to raise money for it, and I ended up getting like I found like some contests where we got to write about, you know, why we were involved in this, like the change we wanted to make through volunteering during our spring break, and I just kind of really told my story and why I was passionate about it. And I ended up winning the grant that ultimately like saved the organization. So like, that's just like one example, but there's so many. And while, you know, when I was a journalist, when I would write about people who were struggling or, you know, people in need, people would always like read those stories and show up and want to help out. So I realized like, you know, really sharing stories is, whether it's your own or the stories of other people, can be a really powerful tool for transformation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're going to get into a lot more of that juiciness fit. Thank you, Lacey. Gabby?
Well, for me, it started when I was a child as well. And I always knew that I wanted to create something like from scratch. And I always like to paint and create things. And when I got into high school and then to the university, I didn't know how to how to convey that into something else. So I ended up studying advertising and communication, and that was my way to do what I loved at that moment. And like,
there's a lot of writers hiding in advertising agencies.
Yeah. And like, let's say like 5 years ago, I started like studying it a little bit more, like creative writing. And I just felt like, oh, wow, that's what I was meant to be. That I was like what I was planning to do in that moment, but I didn't know how. And I start loving it, and the feeling that it gives me, it's amazing. So I definitely say that I am experiencing it more right now, and that I feel great about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, ladies, because I think that it's interesting how this is something that you feel called to even as a young child. That it's something that you're like, yeah, like this feels good and this feels like a safe space, and I'm kind of creating my own little world here, which is a nice lead into the next question as to why now, right? Like, why in the middle of a global pandemic has writing suddenly feels like so powerful and so necessary and so important. So I'm curious how you would describe kind of the value of writing, considering what we're all living right now. And you can kind of go as you like.
Okay, I can start. Well, it happens to me in a personal level that I needed to find out, why does writing make me feel good? And from a personal experience, I began studying that, and why I needed to know why does it feels good. So one of the things that I want to talk about today is that, why does self-expression, and specifically journaling, makes a lot of sense in a times like this we're living in. And so I would like to start by saying that it's a very good news that we have, that unlike animals, we learned and we evolved to use art and expression and words to express what we want or express what we feel without the need for violence, you know? In the space of nature, animals, when they feel like threatened or they want to achieve something, they would use or take actions instead of using words. And this is so powerful because we evolved to, and thanks to that evolution, and because of this large brain we have, full of neurons, we have the possibility and we are capable of feeling safer and easier to respond to these threats by using self-expression. So this is very, very, very powerful to me. And I will let the other girls to talk about this, because I want to deep dive into what happens in our brain when we write.
Okay.
Definitely. I think for the most part, and the question was, why now, right? Why during the middle of a global pandemic would we, the importance of continuing the craft, right? Oh boy. So for all of those writers that I personally know, and for all the writers that I admire and may never meet, they are doing us as a society is such a service by documenting everything we're going through as we're going through it. And there's some think pieces out there, there's some personal essays that give you the window, that let you look into little pockets and windows. I just remember a couple of weeks ago reading about a single mom who had COVID-19 in Brooklyn. She was self-isolating with her small daughter, and she and that story, and she, while she was sick and she was caring for her daughter, she wrote that essay, and it was published in a big publication, and it's really made the rounds, and you just get a window to peek in. And for those people that may not necessarily understand or even sometimes believe the news, I think there's something so pure and so essential in the words of a mother who's worried about her child, who's even through being sick and feeling awful, is taking up a pen and writing just to communicate what she's living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. And there's a million stories now out there of people who have continued to write, people who have started to write, who just want to capture what is going on around them. And this is our history. This is going to be, historically, we've never really had a moment in time when things are recorded and kept in record as they are right now through the advancements in technology. So everything we are creating now is going to be our shared history of this moment. And it's just so important for preservation, for to keep us connected so we can share our humanity. There's just so many services, and it's such an essential tool and craft and art to share and to continue right now.
Thank you.
I think it's also a very good way of processing everything that we're going through. I know on a personal level, when I first had, when the first notice came out that we had to stay in our house and we had to quarantine and we weren't allowed to see our friends, we weren't allowed to leave, my first feeling was of fear and freaking out and just, I want to be outside. I can't do a month of this. I can't do 2 months of this. And it took me grabbing my notebook and sitting down and writing and just really getting to the bottom of what I'm feeling and through all of my feelings to really come to terms with it. And at the end of that session, that writing session, those multiple writing sessions, I didn't feel that fear anymore because it's literally, to be the cliche, like you bleed on paper. I really do. Like for me, it's a way to express myself, whether I share it or not. It's my therapy. And if I rant through all of my mental thoughts and all of my feelings, then I can really get to a solid ground. So for me, it's just that, like, I need to express what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing that's really been coming to me a lot is that I think right now a lot of us are really being tested on where we stand and having to make a choice. And whether it's politically, socially, like in our lives, what our values are. And again, there's a lot of noise out there. And so and I don't know if anyone else is feeling this, like I certainly am. Even within my communities, there's like a lot of difference of opinion on a lot of topics that are like a result of the virus. And I get, in that space of confusion sometimes and not knowing. And when I'm in that space of not knowing in my life, like, what do I do with my business? Or like, where am I going to live? Like, after this, because that was like the big thing for me. I just get to go into that space of not knowing and journaling and writing it out, like through the not knowing, I get to just honor that space and work through it. And it's the place that I can go to work through, the uncertainty in my life. And through it, eventually I get to a place where I'm able to take a stand, or I'm able to know. It doesn't happen after one journal entry, but usually I keep coming back to some kind of theme, or I keep seeing something when I go through all my pages and I'm like, okay, I can see, what's really here for me and what's really important to me right now.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'm so glad that I'm the one hosting this session, because I feel very much the same way. I feel like if I'm confused about anything, I just start writing.
Yeah.
And the answers tend to just come, and sometimes it feels like it's not even me, like I'm channeling, like I'm not even me, like actually like thinking something and then putting it on a paper. It's just coming through me, but the answers tend to come through me in that way. And again, I always loved reading and writing as a child as well. And so like it is a very clear sort of progression to want to incorporate that into our lives now. And so I'll share and then kind of lead into our next question, because for me right now, one thing that I'm doing is I'm journaling mornings and evenings. And I have, you guys, like, I've been a little crazy. So I started over the weekend, I started this habit tracker because I really feel like, and this is not coming from a place of like hyper productivity or anything, like it's coming from a place of intuition and deep love of like the the positive habits that I've been trying to build into my life for like ever, right? I'm turning 40 this year. It's like been a minute. And I am realizing and recognizing this moment in time as this special container where we get to cultivate things that are good for us. And in that cultivation, morning journaling and evening journaling is in there. And it's one page. Like, I'm not giving myself a lot of pressure. Obviously, if I start writing and I want to keep writing, I just do, but which happens often. But I'm curious how your journaling or how your writing has evolved for this moment right now. Like, are you doing anything new? Are you doing anything more intentionally? What kind of prompts? So like, walk us through your writing practice right now. And we can kind of go backwards. Lacey, if you want to start.
Okay. Yeah. So honestly, like sometimes I just feel like there's so much that I'm like, I don't even know where to start. Like what? So, yeah, it just feels like where do you start with all this? So one thing I wanted to show my card deck that I got from our mastermind. One prompt that really helps me, and I do this in some of my retreats, is I pull a card and instead of reading the booklet, I intuitively just look at the message on that card. So if I pull this, it says follow your own rhythm. I take that and I look at everything from like the number that's on the card, the image, and I just write about like what this is saying to me in this moment. And then like after I write it and write about the topic, I go back and like I'll look at the description later. But that's such a great intuition connecting activity that I found that gives me a prompt, something to work off of, and that leads to something else. And then like I think most of us, like everyone brings up the morning pages, right, which is from The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, which is like a 3-page brain dump. Honestly, I don't know if I always get to 3 pages, like some, it's here, there, but you're supposed to kind of do that to like clear out your mind, like just kind of brain dump, stream of conscious, whatever comes up. And I really like that because that gives—
The moment that you wake up, just for anybody who isn't familiar with it, it's supposed to be like the moment you wake up, you just start writing.
Yeah, you're supposed to get to 3 pages, and they can be totally dribble, stream of conscious, whatever. You can even write like, I don't know what to write right now. And I think that's really good because it gives you permission. A lot of the women that I work with, like with their writing, the thing that comes up is this like perfectionist mentality. And it's like, it's just your journal. Like no one's going to see it, but we still feel like, oh, like everything has to make sense and like da-da-da. And
everything.
Yeah, so I just think of like my journal as a place where like I can just mental vomit and no one ever has to see it. And it's just like a clearing. So I'm doing that a lot. And, one emotion personally that's been coming up for me is anger, which has been like completely surprising. If you know me, I'm like a golden retriever. I went to like a retreat last year and the healer was like, tell me about your like anger. And I was like, I don't have any. And she's like, no. Like if you're saying you don't have anger, like you do, but I've never really felt that emotion. Like I feel hurt, not angry when I'm like, kind of like, oh, and I've been like really going like, I don't even know where this is coming from. Like I know when I'm angry in the moment, it's gotta be about something else because this is weird. Like normally these things would anger me. So right now I'm using journaling to cope with this specific emotion over like, when are all the times maybe I should have been angry in my life that I wasn't? Why is it coming up now? What does this mean? What is it trying to show me? How do I channel my anger? So you can also just ask yourself questions, like interview yourself, like if you were interviewing like someone for like a newspaper article, just be like, why, look at yourself subjectively, and your subconscious, or your higher self will start answering for you. And Elizabeth Gilbert like talks about, she's got prompts like that too, where she writes so many letters to herself. She asks herself questions. Like, I think one of her questions is like, what do I need right now? And so she's a good person to follow too, because she has that kind of reflective back and forth conversation with herself as well through journaling.
Yeah. I want to highlight like very specifically what you've shared, because they've been really, really great practical ideas. So for those of you who aren't familiar, you can get a deck of oracle cards on Amazon. They're called oracle cards, and some women use tarot cards as oracle too. I've been doing that to learn the tarot recently. But you kind of hold the deck in your hands with intention. You make sure it has your energy, and then you would ask a question of the deck. Sometimes the question could just be like, what does my soul need to know right now? And then using that card to write. So I think like that's really powerful, like just those ideas. And I'm literally blanking on the second thing that you were talking about, Lacey, the
Morning pages.
the morning pages. Yes, and the morning pages. And so like the waking up and just like, and what you were saying, this was massive about anger. A lot of us as women are not allowed to feel angry ever. Hi. And I want to make sure that you all caught that bit, that if you say that you're not angry, actually you are the most angry. And so your journal can be a wonderful place to like let all that out. Yeah. And it might be the safest place to start. So acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Elizabeth, do you want to share a little bit about what your practices are right now?
Yeah, so right now, because of the time we're in, I have found myself with the time to really write for myself, not for work, not for somebody else, not for a brand, not for advertising, not marketing, for myself. My own creative writing, whatever form that might take. If it's a poem, if it's a story, if it's questions that I'm asking myself, if it's just a journal entry, I'm having a lot of fun just having the time to really hunker down with my journal and just be able to write whatever I want. And a lot of the writing themes that have come up for me have been gratitude, and it has come from a place, again, once I worked through the fear and the, I can't leave my house, I started to really focus on, okay, why? I'm actually blessed to be able to be at my house. I am blessed that I just recently moved, so I have a new apartment. I'm with my boyfriend. I'm with my 2 dogs. Like, I just being grateful for everything that I have, and writing, a practice that I do, again, with writing being the way that I express myself and I express my thoughts. I think one of you said it. I don't know if it was you, Gabby, or Lacey, that said, I don't know what I'm feeling until I write it down. That's very true for me as well. So a lot of the times that I am writing, sometimes I'll think of somebody or I'm finding myself writing, and then I can see how it's being influenced by someone in my life, or somebody that I know, somebody that I admire, or somebody that I'm angry at. And I will write a letter to them, or just write to them. Even if it's never shared, it just helps me process. So I've been writing a lot about, like, to my mom, I'm grateful that she's home. I'm grateful that she's safe. I'm grateful for all the people that are risking their lives. It's just to process what I'm feeling, so I'm not overwhelmed every time I'm talking to these people. But but it's just helped me. Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
And I think that would be like, that's incredibly helpful at this moment, not only for people inside your home that you are now like very, very close with, closer than you've ever been, but also people outside of your home. I love if I had a penny for every letter I've written that I never sent, because it's therapy. It can really be therapy to just kind of really be fully honest. And you can do whatever you like with that letter at the end. You could burn it, you could cut it up into little pieces, you can flush it down the toilet. I don't know if it's safe for the toilet. Maybe just throw it out. But like truly, like writing letters, that's an excellent idea of something to do right now, because I know that for a lot of us, we've had a lot of stuff come up about our relationships. Maybe parents that aren't taking this as seriously. Maybe friends who are just kind of like conspiracy theories or whatever's going on. Like, if you want to process through that, maybe writing a letter to these people that you care about, and like experiencing your emotions and what you want to share through there, and you don't have to send it.
Yeah, it's helped me. And it's even helped me with people that, again, from being in my house and just having too much time to think about my relationships and the people in my life, I have written, or I have had the urge to like reach out to friends from way back then that have wronged me or it ended wrong. And I've worked through the feelings where I'm like, oh, we could reconnect. But then I write it down and I'm like, no, you know what? That page closed. I just needed to like work it through. I did send one to a friend because she was my friend for years and then it ended over something dumb. So I like, after I processed it, I sent like a well cohesive, like, I hope you're doing well. But the rest has just been like, okay, I'm not going to reach out and start stuff right now. Let me just work it through. So even that helps.
What processing can lead to, right? It doesn't always have to be like mending a relationship, but it's just for you to understand where you stand.
Exactly. And understand what the feeling is, because sometimes you might miss someone and then once you write it down, it's like, okay, I miss them, but I don't miss all of these things. So I'm okay.
Yeah. Liz, what you got for us?
Oh my God. I'm just like Elizabeth Biswell. Put those letters in a drawer for 2 days. And if you pull them back out and you reread them and you want to send them, then send them. Just speaking from like a decade's worth of experience on letter writing. So like 2 weeks ago, I think my friends know me, and this is like really over the top and dramatic, but I received this in the mail, and it's a gratitude jar with these lovely cards. Thank you, Jenny Magana. And they just look like this.
That's lovely. And you fill them out?
What was that?
You fill them out with the things you're grateful for?
Fill them out with whatever you want, and you toss them in this really beautiful and over the top and dramatic jar, just like I am. So it's
like jar will do though.
My friends know me, so I think my friend Jenny really wanted to keep me writing. She knew I was having a tough time with work and being overwhelmed, and she said, I'm just gonna send you something in the mail. I hope you put it to good use. And it's been filling up quite nice. And the cards are small, like this big, and they don't fit a lot of writing. But every day I've told myself in the morning as I have my coffee, put a good memory in there. Put a good memory in there. And for my morning, and even throughout the rest of my day, I relive it and I write it and I try to fit as much as I possibly can in the very small piece of paper, and then I toss it in the jar. I haven't looked back into the jar yet. I haven't had the need to, but just getting that out every single morning has been lovely because I've just gotten to relive so many things of the past. With that being said, I've also, like, within the past 3 days, talking about anger, which of course we're gonna feel. If we're not feeling anger right now, like, who are we? So I also have an angry jar, and this is not the fancy beautiful jar from a friend. These are the cocktail onions I drink with my gin and tonic. Right?
Snap.
These are
very well thought out.
I have 500 bottles of, they've been just keeping these jars, and like 500 bottles of the Hendrix and then the tonic. So I use a Post-it note for that. And then they're just kind of like letters or like little things to myself. And a lot of it's just cursing over and over again. And just over and over. It's just like writing like, that's you, like, and then they go into these jars. And when this is all over, I'm just gonna burn it. I'm gonna empty them out into a big like bonfire, and those are getting burned.
It's so therapeutic.
Yeah, that's all getting burned. No need to reread. It's just like, look at this. I have a whole pile of sticky notes. That's all getting like just cursing. Going into the onion jars, and they're getting burned. I invite you all over for a fabulous party, just to burn our onion jars. But yeah, no, the other one, the beautiful one that my friend gave me, that's memories now. And that's my morning. So just a little bit of writing goes a long way.
Yes. I'm going to read a few comments here. Odie says, use that fire pit. Virginia says, I love that cocktail onion jar as the anger jar. Yes. 100%. Yeah, support for that. So like, and I love the idea because it's also giving people like very practical ways that it's not always like the journal, that you like, it could be little things, right? Like that could be like a simple starter. And Gabby, tell us about what you have been up to lately. And please, I want you to work in what you wanted to talk about earlier in terms of our brains and what happens when we write. Very curious.
Yeah. Well, this is amazing to hear everything that you do and to hear your experience as well. And most of what I have been doing is watching what other people are doing right now, because I think that this is a social experiment we are living in. And what I think is that people, oh, well, when we self-manifest or when we self-express and when we write, do you hear me well? I see you like,
yeah.
Blurred. Oh, okay. So this is a mechanism of defense, okay? And so let's talk about a minute about what's really happening right now. We have a real threat out there that is called COVID-19 plus economic crisis. So this is like a real big threat out there. And you know that when we face a threat, our brain sends us cortisol, like an alarm to tell us, hey, you must do something right away. And in this case, well, normally what our cortisol tells us to do is to run away or to fight back. And guess what? In this case, it's very difficult to run away. The way we have to run away is like to stay home, and this is our way to run away, and the safer way to run away. But we can't fight back like face to face. We can go out in the streets and let's say we don't have like a real weapon to fight this virus out there. So it is a normal way, a natural way that we humans try to manifest our fears and our thoughts by journaling or with art or self-expression. What happens in our brain is that, you know that our brain rewards us when we do things that promote survival, okay? So when we do something, run away or fight back, our brain rewards us with hormones that make us feel good. Mm-hmm. In this case, specifically, when we write, our brain is liberating dopamine. And why is that? Because dopamine is that hormone that is released when we think of meeting a need, satisfying a need. So if we feel like we need to express something, we need to write about gratitude or write about, I don't know, cursing, that our brain is telling us, hey, you must do something, you know, you need to do something right now. So our brain is going to reward us by dopamine. Because let's think about this, like, for instance, let's think about an ice cream or a lemonade. When you think about that, your brain is rewarding you because you're thinking about eating that ice cream. The same happens with writing. When you think that you can manifest or that you can make tangible what you're thinking, your brain is liberating dopamine as a reward that is telling you, you are going to survive. This is your way of fighting. This is your way of fighting back this situation we're living in. And when you do it, when you finally write your thoughts down and you, or your feelings, your emotions, it happens the other way around. Your eyes, which are always looking for evidence and information of threats, you look your words, what you have wrote or what you have written down, and you can do what you were saying to do. You can throw it on you, or you can have a deeper connection with what you wrote. But the most important thing is that your eyes are sending visible information to your brain that like a visible proof that you are doing something to promote your survival. And that's when your brain liberates dopamine again and tells you like, hey, you did something great to promote your survival. So that's what happens when we write.
Awesome. I think that this is so important for us to understand, that this is really what's happening, because it also gives you right now, I think the word control, like God, we could journal on the word control through the end of this thing, right? Like this, how we understand how much control we are under our whole lives. In general, never mind now, where it's like, okay, well, like nobody's under any kind of control. So like, yay, or oh my God, right? Like you would have like that whole range of experience, but understand, like for me, I think that something that's really powerful is that when you said like owning and acknowledging the power of words and the power of language, not only for your own processing, but to the extent that you feel called to share that with the world, there's so much power there. There's so much power there when you really think about like who you are, like when you think about who are you trusting, who are you reading right now, like what books are you choosing to engage in this time, like what prompts are speaking to you, like after this conversation, what are you feeling called to? Are you feeling to the gratitude? Are you feeling to like the cocktail anger jar? Are you feeling to, you know, like where, like listening to that and using writing as a powerful tool to process experience and also like be in your power. I think that there's also something there about that too, right?
Yeah, and that's why it's very natural for us to write both positive things and negative things, because negative things are just a more accentuated way of this self mechanism of defense.
Yeah,
we are trying just to so that's why I am trying to encourage people, because I think that there is a misconception that only professional writers can write, and this is a healthy, very healthy way of self-defense right now these days. And I think that we can think about writing as an act of magic, because you know that there's always in an act of magic two actions: appearance and disappearance. And it's very amazing how those things you were saying, that sometimes you don't have like a structured thoughts, and you just come to write and things are coming, like if you were taking those things out of your head and you don't know where it comes from. And if you think it that way, like it takes like fractions of seconds to put things visible, that your brain is telling to do something with your hands and your fingers, and it takes just fractions of seconds. That's magic for me. And when you look at that and then throw it away or get a deeper connection to what you wrote, you can reinterpret that and you can feel like in ease or feel safer when you see what you wrote.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you, Gabby. There's so much, there's so much here. I want to be mindful of time. We have about 15 minutes left. So everybody, there's a whole bunch of people watching. If you have questions for these incredible women about their writing practices, about how you might start one, definitely like go ahead and put them in the comments and we will address them live. If you happen to be watching later and you have comments later, please add them. They will be on this and they'll be watching and answering your questions even after in the comments. But I would love to start like going around and kind of shifting the last bit of this conversation towards exactly what Gabby was referring to, which is that idea that I know that there's a lot of people out there who feel a calling to write, but they're like, but I'm not a good writer. Or like a lot of people are like, but like, I want to write in English, but it's not my first language, so I don't feel comfortable. There's like a lot of people, or like it's not perfect, right? Like Liz Lacy was talking about how like often writers and creators have this like perfectionism bug that prevents them from creating the things that they want to create. And so I would love to go around and get from you two things. So one, like maybe one quick tip or idea that would help someone start a writing practice for themselves, and also share with us whatever projects you have going on that you'd like to invite people to participate in, or maybe it's your work, because some of these women actually write for a living. So kind of inviting us into your work and your process and your experience, and how people can engage with you a little bit more. So a tip, and how people can work with you, or what kinds of projects you would like to invite them into. And whoever's ready can jump in.
I'll go. So it can be really hard to find the time, especially time that, like to really tap in and not be interrupted. For me, doing it like first thing in the morning is really helpful, after I meditate. And I wanted to share like one practice, if you're like, I don't know where to start. We've given like a lot of different ideas for journaling. I would not like put too much pressure on yourself to be like, oh, I have to get my 3 morning pages every morning. Just get into it as like a place you go when you're like feeling a certain, like, I feel confused, I'm gonna go journal. Just like know that it's available to you. In my retreats, I do this activity where the women there, they write a letter to their future self, and it's like their self in the next year. I don't give them an exact date, and then they address it and I send it out to them. And I like what Gabriella was saying about your brain registering things. So this can also happen with the things that you want to manifest and create, because when you're actually writing them down, they're getting processed and like stored in your brain. And what's been so interesting after doing that with probably like maybe like 50 women is that they always write me back and they're like, oh my gosh, like all of this stuff happened, or happened in a different way, or happened in a way I didn't expect. And so that is a way, like, I think if you do that activity once, you're like, whoa, like you don't have to wait 6 months to get the letter. But I think most of us who journal know the power of like when you go back and you read old journals, you're kind of like, whoa, this is the stuff I really was dreaming about and wanting. And so use that as like a way to motivate you. It's a powerful form of manifesting, and just get into it when you can and when you need it. What was the other into? What
tell us about being a conversion coach. What does that mean, and how can people work with you?
Well, I really help people create copy for their businesses that's rooted in storytelling, and really like converting their audience to whatever they're offering. I just wanted to share that on Friday, I'm hosting a free online workshop. It's free, but I'm just asking people to make donations to a food bank. It can be a food bank of their choice, or the one that I'm promoting, which is a food bank here in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, that's feeding the elderly right now who would otherwise have no way to get their meals. And I'm going to be doing it's called Selling Your Value, Copywriting Tips for a Better Bio. And this is a presentation I've done in Miami before. But everyone needs a bio. Writing about yourself can be really hard. So that's something that I'm offering right now. To like, I love it because yes, it's your bio. Yes, it's for professional reasons, but the process of writing your bio is actually really fun and can help you really see like what you're really amazing at, how to package your skills, and how to really like it. It's a really an act of self-confidence to be able to write about yourself and sell yourself. And that's what I want all women to be able to do with confidence and really show up and tell their stories.
Beautiful. And we have everyone's Instagrams listed on the post. So you can get in touch with Lacey or any one of these women by following them and direct messaging them there. Who'd like to go next? A tip and how people can get involved with you. Liz, go ahead.
A tip is read everything. Just read what calls to you. Just read what calls to you. I love to read all the things, but read what calls to you. There are some amazing pieces being produced right now, and you don't even have to read about COVID-19 or like the bad news or anything. There is just a lot of speculative fiction even is like popping up. I think as we try to escape from the situation, we see a lot of great writers putting out these completely different worlds and timelines and situations and it's just lovely to go into that. So if you want to start writing and you have no idea where to start, read and learn from the page. How all the greats do it. They just learn from the masters that came before them through the page. And a project that I'm working on, I have my nonprofit. It's a literary magazine and publishing house based out of the UK. And we are always open for nonfiction, fiction, and poetry. So you can submit. I'll share the link below. It's the Sloki UK. And I have a mentoring program through that. I teach new writers how to put together their first essay, personal essay, and I will be launching a class or some sort of project related to that very soon. And I'll leave those comments on the link.
Awesome. Thank you.
The tip that I would give to anybody who is trying to get into journaling or wants to go back to journaling is to remember that you don't have to edit yourself, and you definitely don't have to edit yourself as you write. It seems like it's common sense, but honestly, to me, a lot of the times when I first started getting into journaling, or even now, I would edit myself. So let's say I'm really into it and I misspell something, or I say something a little convoluted and I know I could have said it better. I would just scratch it out and rewrite it. And then it stops my flow and it stops my brain from just pouring it onto the paper. And it's only for you. So why are you editing yourself? Just let yourself say it the way you want to say it and the way it's coming out. And if it's not perfect and you wouldn't publish it, that is perfectly fine. You can write it 7 more times. You can rip it up. You can never look back on it, or look back on it and say like, wow, I can't believe I misspelled that. Just let yourself write without editing and without judging yourself as you write it. Every single book that has ever been published has gone through editors. It has been tweaked. The writer has made mistakes. It's okay. And right now, I'm really taking the time to just hunker down and work on myself and what I want to do, what type of writing I want to do. I professionally do social media writing and marketing, but I don't have any project going on right now that I would like to share. And I'm sure my LinkedIn and my Instagram is on the Comadres directory. So if you ever want to see what I'm up to, that's where.
Fantastic. Last but not least, Ms. Gabby.
Yeah, well, I have 2 tips. The first one is to make writing available. And what works for me is to have like pencils and colors and notebooks everywhere. In every corner of my house, you can find something, because sometimes we think that we don't have the time or the space, and we put excuses into it. So every time you make it more available, it's going to be easy. And the second tip is that it's funny because we have talked about this. In ancient times, people call this catharsis. And catharsis meant, for these Greek people, meant to contemplate their emotions while something tragic is happening. But in modern times, we can't contemplate things like just contemplate things. We have this valuable weapon and at our fingertips. So everybody can use it. Everybody can write about it and use it as a mechanism of defense in these times. That's why it's very natural, very healthy, very common to see how people is using and over-expressing themselves. And what I wanted to say is that we must be respectful with what people are writing or telling or saying over there, because everybody is in its own personal process of this situation. So
yes,
what I mean is that we just need to be careful with what we read and what we listen, but we must be very respectful because everyone is in its own process, and that's okay. It's healthy for us, for them, and for everybody. And thank you. And okay, and what I wanted to tell you is that I am encouraging people to make up quarantine stories, and that meaning reflections, anecdotes, or tales. with positive outcomes. So if anybody would like to jump in and to submit their story, that's going to be either in English and Spanish. We are publishing people's stories in the Instagram and Facebook account.
Awesome. For We Mammals, right?
Yeah, for We Mammals.
Fantastic. So we have a couple of questions which we'll take on very quickly. Jelly is asking about Lacey's letter to your future self. She said, do we send it right away? From what I understand, the best way to handle that is to kind of give it to someone else who sends it back to you at some point. So you don't know when you're going to get it back. And I've engaged in this like experience before, and it's so awesome because you totally forget that you wrote that letter, and then one day you open your mailbox and there's a letter from yourself in the mail. It's such a cool experience, right? But do you recommend that, Lacey, that she just kind of wait, like give it to someone else to mail to her?
Yeah, someone that you trust, or you could do it for each other, like another friend you have. It's kind of cool to do that. I also do one every year on New Year's Day, and I have someone send it back to me. So I write a letter to myself in the future that where I want to be in that year. And then, you know, if you don't want to go through all that, like I write little letters to myself all the time. And sometimes I'll just like pull them out of my journal and put them in an envelope, and I'll be like, I'm going to save this for when I need a pick-me-up, when I'm having a bad day. Yes. Save this letter when I nail that client. Like what you can intention it around so many different things, and just have someone give it. You can do it. I say like do it as much as often as many ways as possible, because it is such an amazing reinforcement of the things that you're able to create when you write them down.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then the last question is from Odie. She's asking if journaling has to be a routine practice, or can you just kind of pick up a pen one day when you really need it and just write?
I say you go, just do it. Just do it when you feel like it. Who's gonna hold you accountable, you know, but yourself? Like, we're not watching. Just do it when you feel called to.
Awesome.
I think it's the best way. There's no more. We don't need to add any more pressure or judgments on ourselves right now. So just do it when it feels good.
If you want to develop a practice, then do it, but don't feel obligated, right? I think that's the general, like, let this feel good and juicy and like a release, not another kind of like task on a to-do list. Let this be an escape and a positive experience. All right, ladies, so we are coming up on time. We are so grateful that you took this time with us today. I want to write short stories and submit them to We Mammals. Like, I want to be like, I am totally honored. I've been writing more than I have in years. My son started writing, which is like really cool because he's 9. So he's the age that all of you were talking about that you were writing. So it's been really sweet to just experience this moment through the power of language and expression. And so thank you all for helping us kind of move through it and understand it. And I'm sure you've inspired a lot of new writers to start grabbing that pen and paper and kind of being and expressing. So thank you all. We are here every weekday at noon, as long as this thing lasts. And then we'll probably do it on a weekly basis, but super appreciate you all. There is also a link on the post. So if you felt inspired and you would like to donate to the community or to any one of these lovely women, there is a link there for you to do that. And until next time, thank you so much.